Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grassroots Racer. Before I get into tonight's guest, I want to have a quick wrap up of my weekend at Sandown Raceway. So there was some positives to take away from the weekend as I managed to finish each race and get some points at this round, but the car was still not competitive as I would like it to be. We struggled with clutch issues. The spark plug actually blew out of the head in one of the races, so that was a bit unfortunate. Although the suspension and steering felt great compared to previous rounds, I just didn't have a straight line speed because of the clutch. It was slipping, so that was no good. But I'm currently weighing up my options to see if the car is if there's any further improvements that can be done. And looking forward to make progress for the next few rounds. But thanks again to everyone supporting me, coming to the track, cheer me on. Even just leaving comments on my posts and the people who help me out the track and give me advice to get me back out there. We really do appreciate it. But I also had Liam Hole come down and give me a hand on the tools, and I really appreciate all his help. So please go like his page, LJ Motorsport. Give him a follow as well because he races XL again soon, and he's achieved some really good results this year. So maybe we should get him on the pod. But okay, it's time to introduce this week's guests. And yes, I said guest because I spoke to a father and son duo this week who have a lot of family history in motorsport and have a family run team who are well known in the motorsport paddock and have supported a lot of great drivers in their racing career. Father Dave has also been very successful himself in the V8 Utes, Super Utes, and raced heaps of other categories, and he is now passing that experience on to his son Ashton, who is only just starting his journey in cars. But he has done a few laps in a go-kart, so he's been around motorsport his whole life. And it's a big welcome to Dave and Ashton Sieders from Sieders Racing. It's great having a father and son both involved in motorsport together. I usually start with how you got involved in motorsport, and I'm guessing Ashton followed his dad's footsteps. So maybe Dave, if you want to start off, and then Ashton can tell me where he's got his inspiration from.
Yeah, for me, it started with my dad before I was born. So I was lucky enough to be bred into motorsport, and that was sports sedans, I believe, for my dad back in the day. Then turned into super trucks and went on to doing I think a stupid amount of Bathursts in a row, and got to live the life of following dad around the racetracks. And I've sort of done the same thing with Ashton. He's lived the life of following me around racetracks. Probably not as much as I have. We've been a bit more schooling with him, where dad was always had us in tow at every race. But he's definitely gone to a lot of them. And now he goes to all of them, and he's sort of on a sort of apprenticeship trajectory at the moment and it's great to have him involved. And even the younger two finally had a steer of a go-kart the other day to learn how to drive more so than anything, and they actually took to it really well. And probably not as much as this guy, but they were keen to actually do more, which was pretty cool to have that next level of involvement from the Sieders Racing team, which will be hopefully my son.
Yeah, and Ashton, how did you sort of get inspired to jump into motorsport?
Well, when I was younger, always dad, when I would go to races, always be supporting him, make sure I have all the team shirts, all his hats, a lot of emotions when he didn't win the race. I can remember that. But even just watching how a whole race team work, it was just crazy experience. And I think when I was for my 6th birthday or something, I got to ride in a what car was it?
I used to work for V8 Race Fast Track.
Yeah,
and
fast track. Yep.
yeah, I got to take him out for a hot lap when he was 6 for his birthday. So we did some I think it was 5 laps in the passenger seat with him, as tight as we could get him, but he was small, so he couldn't really see over the bonnet, but he got to feel the G-force, he got to feel the speed, and he got to do some stuff that was pretty unique for someone at his age, and it's probably the worst thing I have ever done if I wanted to keep my back balance any good. But it was always going to be a case that I was never going to stop my kids from being around my stuff that I've loved myself, because I love it for a reason. So I'm going to share that and he's taken to it more than the other two, which is fine by me.
Yeah, and how long's the team been around for? Because I think it's 3 generations.
Yeah, so it's 3 generations. So it started with my dad and my uncle together racing in sports sedans and club car stuff. Very much just at home doing their own thing, where they had their own diesel mechanic shop essentially, and they ran the cars from that mechanical diesel shop. And then it morphed into then the truck racing. Sieders Racing team didn't really evolve until the late 90s, and that's when we sort of rebuilt our own truck instead of being racing for other people and things like that. So we sort of went away from our own stuff for a fair while. My uncle still kept his thing, and the original thing was Sieders truck racing, and then we weren't going to have that same thing, so we went and did SRT, and I think my older brother at the time was a big HRT fan, so Holden Racing Team and SRT, so that's where it came from in a sense. And yeah, I designed the first logo myself on paint, and that's where we started, and that was back in the days of running super trucks and Konica series of what it was back then. So it started in super trucks in the very late 90s, and then we got back into sort of the cars in the 2000 when the Konica series started. We're an inaugural runner of that series with Dad and my brother, and and it's been a pretty big ride ever since then. Like, we've always had cars, we've always had trucks. The trucks phased out after a while, unfortunately. They sort of just fell off the landscape when we're chasing the motorsport dream for us kids, essentially, for me, my 2 brothers. And then it just kept evolving from there, from running our own stuff really well and competitively and winning things. People then asked for help. That help turned into then running cars, and that running in cars turned into a business to what we've got today, which Ashton's been around more of than anything else. He didn't get to see those early days, obviously, but he's got to see the later generation of our SRT, which is an operation in itself, which right now has 4 employees running, up to 12 cars at events. We just had at SMP 11 cars between 386s and 8 Super Utes, and technically we had a 9th Super Ute with Holly. We're still sort of half helping her out. And yeah, it's a big operation. We'll go to certain events, and we'll have up to about 40 staff at that events, and it's a really big thing that we run. A lot of people around the paddock just sort of look at us and go, "Is it crazy for doing that amount?" And we just don't know any different. We just bite off more than we chew. We chew like hell, the old Brocky saying. So you just keep going and make it work.
Yeah, and obviously, you guys have been around for a long time, so it takes a lot of effort to build up something that big. How many races do you do at a time? Because sometimes you got state series events on, and sometimes you got national. So do you ever cut off some racing to focus on your own, or what's sort of the go?
Yeah, definitely we have. So this year we introduced we didn't, but Toyota did the state series stuff for the development series. So we had to do that with 2 of our drivers to make the main game, essentially. That worked really well. It got us there, but like, we didn't go to staying in that championship, even though we had some people right at the top of that championship, like Cody. And he's more focused on the national championship. He didn't want to do those extra races. It's a short turnaround between events as well. So focusing on the national is what he's more about. And if we had something go wrong at Queensland that was out of his control, i.e. a crash, it then gives a very, very short turnaround to get the car ready. And we're running back-to-back weekends for the next 3 events, I believe. So we've got Tailem, Sandown, and then Bathurst. They're all back-to-back. And it's not until we then go to Gold Coast that we don't have a back-to-back again, which will be just the Utes itself. So it's a very busy operation. And to throw the state series in there, it has to work with the main schedule. We did have Hugh, who wanted us to run the state series still for him. I believe we were just going to be spread too thin, and we told Hugh we couldn't do it, which was hard because he's part of our family. We don't like to let people down. We're the team that doesn't give up on a crashed race car at a race weekend. So to not do an event when it's one of our guys is pretty hard.
And it's one of the things you have to tell your drivers. You're gonna have to say to them, you know, don't crash, otherwise you're gonna be rocking up to the next event with duct tape and cable ties holding your thing together.
Yes, definitely.
So how does Ashton sort of get on the tools, and, you know, what's your involvement, I guess, because you said you're in a bit of an apprentice role. So how do you what do you do? Do you sweep floors? Do you get on the tools? What sort of varies for you?
Well, I mean, when I help out with the boys at the workshop, like before the race weekends, you know, I'll help them out with tools, you know, whatever they need done, I'll help them. But usually at the race weekends, I've been starting to do a lot of data work, helping out all the engineers, you know, try to get that understanding of the cars in that deeper level, so that when I do start racing, like the 86 in the future and other stuff, like I've got that understanding of what all that stuff means and what I've got to do to turn that data into amazing racecraft.
Yeah, because it obviously it takes, to make a good driver, they need to be able to work on their own car. So to be able to bring that to your team, I guess, you know, is very crucial. And is that something, Dave, you also learnt growing up? Did you also, you know, your dad make you get on the tools before you sort of let mechanics do some work for you?
Yeah, 100%. He brought us. We didn't have a team when I started, like what we do today. So we were the team. So when we were doing Aussie race cars, then into like supercars, it was me running the race team, not my older brother Luke at that time. So I was the driving force back then, managing it. Luke was the manager when it came to the race weekends, and I then stepped away from that role and then drove. I never fully stepped away from it because I was the main mechanic on the cars. I was everything when it came to it. So if there was a question need to be asked, where is this? I packed the truck, so I knew where it was. So I was still very hands-on, but we still tried to run a pretty structured team even back then, because we had engineers that came to us for the race weekends and test days, and even came out to the workshop for certain degrees of stuff. So some of the stuff that we've done and over the past and have done in the past is try to work out things with our engineers and do tilt tests and all sorts of weird and wonderful things to try and make it work, and work out our engineering better and learn along that journey. And we've got that knowledge base with me, Luke, and a few of the guys that work with us, and that just helps us run the crew a little bit easier. I'm more of a driver these days, but I'm still very knowledgeable when it comes to it. I still get people ask me on my thoughts on certain problems and things like that, but it does also help me inside the car as well, because I know what I'm feeling and how it relates to a mechanical sense as well. And that's one thing that we're big on. I've come from previous teams where I didn't race in our own team, and they were big on the drivers doing it. So like a Sonic Motorsport, I actually drove for them in Formula Ford, and they were big on having the drivers be a mechanic on their car between races, especially just to be around the boys as well as know the car a bit more. Yeah. And that was part and parcel of what I already did, so it was good for me to do that even back then. So we'll no doubt have Ashton doing the same thing, pulling engines out, rebuilding gearboxes, all that sort of stuff. He's not at that level yet, but he's getting there. So he's pretty much probably where I was at his age, doing all that sort of nitty-gritty little things at the moment, but he'll definitely be more and more involved as it gets older.
Yeah. So, yeah, my situation's a little bit different, but it's still kind of the same. So what I've been doing is I race Formula Vee, so it's quite a simple category. And I've been sort of, you know, Dad helped me at first, and then he sort of set me off on my own, and now I'm learning how to, you know, in between rounds, pull the thing apart, put it back together, and, you know, you slowly work on your own things until when you're at the track, you don't really need, you know, you're not sitting there clueless. So I do have a mechanic, but he's there sort of to help as an extra hand, because you always sort of need one.
Yes,
it's definitely a good thing to know how to work on your own race cars because it takes you a long way.
Definitely. Most drivers do, surprisingly. A lot of them have a bit of an understanding. Some of them even like knowing, like a few of the people like that have come through at my era did know a lot more than what it puts out in the media. And it's one of those things a lot of people don't realize how much the driver knows on how the mechanics work. Some drivers are just clueless, so and they'll be honest. Most of them that are honest, and it doesn't mean they're any worse a driver. It just means they just don't know how to fix a car. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a bit off topic, but what categories have you raced, Dave and Ashton? And where did you both? What was the first thing you both raced?
Well, for myself, I haven't properly raced yet. I've done testing and like I know I'm like decent, like I'm not bad. Like I've done some we've done a lot of go-kart testing. I've got medical problem, osteoporosis, where my bones are really weaker compared to everyone else. So I got to get medical clearance to be able to start racing, but hopefully at the end of this month when I have my next bone density scan, I should be able to start racing. And then, you know, we'll start doing some test days in the 86, and, you know, me and my dad and my uncle, you know, we just figure out what the path is from there.
So that's really awesome, man, and it's definitely something that you're going to have to overcome, and to persevere is going to be something that's going to be really positive for the future, because if you can jump in a race car, you'll definitely find it's heaper fun once you start racing side by side. I'm not sure how you're at the moment, but have you done any racing like in the test days? Have you ever raced with someone?
I mean, like, occasionally you get a faster guy every now and then but usually I try to make friends with him, like say to him, oh, let's have a little battle, like if we're like right behind each other, and, you know, it's just good fun, like, you know, seeing what best line is, you know, seeing, or if they're going to break there, can I break there to be faster than them? You know, it's a real fun experience trying to race them, but it hopefully can overcome this and, you know, start getting onto racing.
Yeah, man. And do you have sort of a simulator that you try and train on if before you go out for a test, or just for a bit of fun?
Well, yeah, I've got a bit of a little F1 simulator for the F1 game that I use often, you know, always try and improve my lap time, you know, go up on the AI level racing, whatever, you know, race people online, but trying to get Dad to see if he can buy me a PC so I can start doing some iRacing with some of the boys from the race team, because the more I can learn from them, the more I can, you know, use and learn to help my own racing.
Yeah, well, I'll vouch for you here. iRacing's really good. It's got the 86 on it now, so that's a fair bit of fun. But they've got the rear wings, so they've got a bit more downforce.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually. So I have an iRacing account. I've done a little bit with his older PC, but it's just not good enough, unfortunately. And our internet was crap back then as well. So everything's a little bit better now, but we haven't got to that level. But yeah, with him and his racing, we're starting a little late. I didn't really naturally start that early either. I didn't get my first go-kart until I was, what was I? I was, once I had my first job. So I was 14. So he's actually technically started earlier than me. And if you think about that, I've had a pretty good career. Dad, for me, wasn't very wanting to be involved in go-karts. He did it early on with my older two brothers, had some issues with the karts, and it was a nightmare. It was raining. He fell over trying to push start them. And basically, from their bad experience, I missed out completely. Then when I was that 14-year-old working at Eastern Creek Go-Karts for my first job, so Dad knew Gary Holt quite well, and I got a job working in the workshop there. That paid for my first go-kart. And then away I went from there. I had my brother take me to the racetrack, and we went lots of practice days like Ashton's doing now. So I probably did like about the amount of practice that Ashton's done now, before I raced, and then I went and raced a few club events and stuff like that. So he's probably still at that same level that I was. Probably the only disadvantage he has compared to me, I grew up on my parents' 46-acre property.
Yeah.
He's grown up in a suburban house. So every day, if I wasn't doing something with my mate after school, I was in the paddocks riding a motorbike or a paddock basher. I learned how to drive a car at the age of 6, and so I've always been driving something. I remember having my mates come over one day when I think I was about 9 or 10, and I'm driving down our long driveway and then about to turn in the paddock, and one of my mates' mums turns up, and she's seen this ghost car driving directly towards her and freaked out because she couldn't see me in the driver's seat because I was that small. And then I stopped, jumped out of the car, and she then gave it to her son and the friend that came. You're not allowed to get in that car and whatever. And I said, yeah, it's all right, Mrs. B. I won't take him in the car. I'll go put it away and we'll do something else. Yeah, she left and we got in that car. Don't worry about that. And so I taught all my mates to drive as well a little bit, so which was pretty cool. And then from there, like the karting, I did maybe 2 or 3 races on my P plates, and then I was thrust into a super truck before I knew it. So I was, it was one of those things. So, actually, so now I think about it, I started karting later than I thought. So it would have been 15 that I started because I was in a super truck at 16.
Yep.
And then I was doing a super truck after 3 events of my go-karting. I wasn't off my P's in my kart or anything like that, which was pretty gnarly. They obviously had a lot of faith in what I could do already from just seeing a few kart races. I remember, you might not know of the name, but Paul Laskazetsky, he seen me testing one day. He's a national Formula 4 champion. He no longer races anymore. He lives up in Queensland, but he's a bit younger than me, and he was like in the juniors and I was in the seniors. And sure enough, he seen me and he goes, "You're crazy." And then he seen me the next race meeting. He seen us, and of course you're starting from the back with your P plates, and there was only I think 2 or 3 P platers in a field of 20 karts. I was always coming from the back. I was always driving from the back to the front, and this guy couldn't believe that I'm passing all these guys and they're around the outside at Eastern Creek and Oran Park and all these wonderful tracks we have or used to have some of them. And he was a national go-kart champion at that stage. So I think that gave a lot of confidence in my brother, especially because it was his truck and Dad was just sort of in the later stages. I jumped in, won my first race. A little bit lucky to win my first race because the guy that was leading spun out. But hey, I won my first race. They can't take that off me, right? And then after that first win, I then won every race after that because I got confidence and it grew. Then I went into a Formula Ford from a super truck. So I went from the biggest thing you can do to one of the smallest things you can do on a racetrack. Probably a V is probably the only other thing that's smaller, right?
Yeah.
And it was nuts. First race ever in a Formula Ford at Bathurst in a Formula Ford. So, yeah. So no, I didn't go to a normal track. I went to Bathurst, right? And my Formula Ford career started with me spinning out on the main straight on a test day at Wakefield Park because I went to go turn on the go-kart circuit instead of the actual turn 1 for the motor circuit. I basically, I've got to turn here now because I hadn't been to the circuit. I went, hang on, there's a wall there blocking the track. I realised the straight kept going, and then I turned back the other way and did a pirouette. And I felt like an idiot. But the worst thing is I'm dobbing myself in now, right? I even dobbed myself in back then because the team didn't even see me spin out on the main track. I'm like, how did you not see me spin out? And I kept going, and then away we go, straight to Bathurst after that test day. Who would have thought? I managed a top 10 in Formula Ford in my first weekend. Really happy with that. And then did State Series Formula Ford with a bit mixed with a bit of Aussie cars and super trucks at the same time, because my brother started Aussie cars that next year as well. Did really well in State Series. I think I finished 4th, graduated to the National Series. Pretty tough year in the National Series. I learnt that people are pretty serious when it gets to that sort of level, and I needed to up my own game. I still did okay. I got I think I got a couple podiums, but it was always really hard. It was pretty hard just to be in top 10. So I'm in years, like a couple of years after the Win Cup era of Formula Ford, to where it was still quite big fields. It was the last year of the Kent engine when I finished Formula Ford year after. And that's the year I came 3rd. So that's when I moved to Sonic. I was told by someone to Pee Wee Siddle to go, if you want to have a good career, go to this team. And we went, all right, we'll listen to people that know better than us, because we didn't really know that many people up and down pit lane back then. We're mainly in our super truck, still family, and not really into the car racing side. And we listened to this guy that we didn't know too much about. Went there, Mick Ritter, very bullish figure. He'll tell you how it is. You stuff up, he'll make sure you know that you stuffed up, not the team. If you try and mouth off about anything about the car, he'll give it straight back to you and tell you to go away and don't drive his car again or anything like that. He's really hard on the drivers and makes them get the best out of themselves. Most people thrive there, and I did. I had 4 race wins that year. I was in the top 3 a lot. Had a couple little bingles which cost me making it to the top 2 in the championship, especially in the last race. I lost second in the championship by crashing. And same with the championship win, lost that because crashing, essentially. And that's Formula Ford. Wheels are out there, easy as to wipe them off. And then that really set me off on a path that year. That basically gave me the confidence that I knew I could do it. I'd just come back from the year before that doing really well in Aussie cars, winning 10 out of 22 races in the Aussie car. Yeah. And that was unheard of. I didn't win the championship because I missed 2 rounds. Yeah. So I was never a figure, but it was one of those things. People thought I won the championship because I won so much. Yeah. That was crazy. Oh, you didn't win that championship. I'm like, no, I missed 2 rounds. They're like, oh, okay. And then went to FPR after that as a test driver. I got picked up by them. That was really cool. And really tried to make everything work there. But unfortunately, there's a team called Team Kiwi at the time, and they were moving teams. And my seat got bought from underneath me from Team Kiwi, essentially. They went and ran a 3rd car instead of running a development series car. The ironics of it is they fell over as a team and they had this extra car again, but we'd already bought our own car as a family, and that started our own family team back up really hard. So if we hadn't had that, we potentially don't have a family team like we do now. Yeah. So everything happens for a reason. And then spent 3 years in supercars with our own family team with an older car, doing really well. Got a podium in a weekend, a lot of top 5s. Never had everything underneath us like some of the other guys, unfortunately. But that's what we had. That we tried our heart out. We got the opportunity to do Bathurst in a wild card when they first did the wild cards. So one of the first wild cards, we had a top 20 at the Phillip Island 500. So not the Sandown 500, it was the Phillip Island 500. That was pretty cool. So we got a top 20, and I was passing cars in my last stint coming back through the field after a bad pit stop. I passed Triple Eight's second car at the time that had the 2 English drivers in it, and that was pretty cool. I'm passing a Vodafone car at that stage. We were leasing Triple Eight's 3rd spare car for that weekend. So to be their 3rd car, beat their putt. So second car was pretty cool. And then finished that year with the supercars, and basically had to make a decision on what I was going to do. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Couldn't really spend another fourth year in the development series. Didn't really want to do that. It's a lot of monetary pressure on everyone to try and make it happen if we don't have the money, for instance. We always had some sort of backing from someone, so it always helped. I was going to go into that year really with not too much backing. I had a shot at trying to make the main game for that year with some good backing. It fell over at the last hour, unfortunately, with the team going a different direction. So I had it all there, and the team chose someone else, which was pretty hard. Someone else had more money. Yeah. So that was really, really hard. Then really wasn't going to race in 2010. So that's where we're at now. Wasn't going to do anything. And then I had one of my backers that was wanting me to do something, Adelaide 500, and that's where we started the Utes. We were already running some Utes at that stage for some family friends that wanted us, and this is where our team really started. Mm-hmm. Went from there, running Utes. We never left it ever since. I've been in it ever since. I had maybe a year off, I think it was in total. And it's been great. We've built a team from 2 cars all the way up to now 8 cars in the Utes plus 86s.
That's awesome.
Doing the 86 in 2016 when it first started. Coming second in that year myself, and fourth with our other driver, Timmy Brook. So we had a real strong year in our very first year. Set us up to then grow even that team from 2 cars to 3 cars. And we
You got beat by some supercar drivers in that.
I did. I got beat by Will Brown in the very first year of the 86s. So, and one of those things, both me and like Timmy Brook, we go, geez, he's good. We knew it straight away. Same with Cameron Hill. Both them two are just good. Cam was just a class to start off with. Then a few things went wrong. He didn't recover. Will came in and just stole everyone's thunder and finished off the year, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We got to see the future in front of us, essentially.
Yeah. And that's an awesome journey, man. And, you guys have given young drivers a lot of opportunity. I'll actually name a few who've been on this podcast. Elliot Barber, Josh Anderson, Jimmy Vernon.
Yep.
I've all interviewed them and they've all raced with you guys. So, in the Super Utes. So that's really cool that you're given such young kids opportunity. Well, they're probably younger at the time. Opportunities to drive for you. But, for Ashton, what are your aspirations and goals with racing?
Well, really, every young racer has a dream of Formula One, whether that's realistic or not. Well, for my case, probably not realistic, but you always got to have a dream somewhere. But really what I want to do is real big goal for me is I want to try and make supercars. I want to get to that point where Dad didn't do, or generations in my case before me. I want to be that generation that makes it to supercars, just makes it past all the other stuff, succeeds and gets.
I guess he probably wants to make a pro out of it, where I only ever made it as semi-pro. If you think I did at one stage, that's all I did as a for a living, right? But that was because I had the backing of a family helping me, allow me to still do it, right? So I was still only semi-pro. Where I think that's none of us have been able to reach that full pro level. So I think that's what he's probably going to be striving for. I think that's what the realistic aim is first. Mm-hmm. If you can get past that and make an Oscar Piastri of yourself, great. But there's a lot of stuff got to happen from now to there, and he's young enough that anything still can happen.
Yeah. And do you guys have any sponsors who help and support your team?
Yeah, we do. We've got the G4 Racing Group, which is a Total Tools group of stores. So there's about I think there's 6 or 8 stores now. And they've been a good supporter of our team for a long period of time. We've got some good local sponsors as well, in Buttsworth Industrial Supplies, AGG Welding Supplies, and a lot of local guys that have always helped us and helped us out. And even like we've got Motion Group, so they're a part of our team at the moment. They're a part of my car and my teammates' car as well. So we've got some good people behind us and always backing us, and we've got a lot of we've had a lot of backing in the past with some companies as well, which have always helped us out. So one of the probably bigger ones has been Gulf Western Oil. They were a big part of us for a long period of time. Not quite now, but they were. We had a full supercar, full program with them at one stage, and have always had some sort of a relationship with the boys there, and they've been awesome to us, and so is a few of the other notable ones over the past, like One Steel Reinforcing. Unfortunately, isn't around anymore, but when they were around, they were a pretty big company. They sponsored us first, then they went in and started sponsoring supercar teams. So it was pretty cool that we brought someone into the category that went further as well. So, and then people like we've had some good relationships and still do with like the Bisley guys. So they're still around today, and know people like Scotty Cams from the building shows and stuff like that because of it. And they still in the background. That family is always happy to chat to us, not currently backing us, but we've had a lot of notable people that have really helped us in the past, and without it, we don't have what we have today.
Yeah. And just watch your social media for those who, want to follow your progress and see where you guys go.
Well, we obviously got the main Sieders Racing Instagram account, and I've got myself Ashton Sieders on Instagram, Ashton Sieders 88, Jamie Wincup fan.
Yeah, I've got just Dave Sieders, which is my Instagram and Facebook, I believe. They're linked together. So I'm on there, and so is Sieders Racing Team. It's got both accounts as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on the show tonight. It was great to speak to you both, and talk about Sieders Racing Team, which is a really successful racing team, which has been around, you could almost say, forever. And it was great to speak to you guys.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.